So I'm just going to show you the palette for today. These are all the different colors that we're going to be using.
Second one's more of a.
And generally what I do is once I've started the Zoom meeting, once I've started the painting class, I put everyone on mute, but if you have any questions at all, just unmute yourself. Also, during the class, sometimes if you have a very specific question, you want to ask me about your painting and you need me to see the painting, you can just take a picture of it and send it to me by way of text message or Instagram or any way that you contacted me in the first place. Okay, so I'm just going to put everyone on mute now. Again, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
You hear that? You're on mute.
Okay, and I just want to make sure before I get started that everyone was able to get a copy of the little stencil that I sent out and get a sketch on the canvas ahead of time. If you were not able to do that, let me know and I'll kind of walk you through sketching it onto the canvas, okay? But otherwise, we're just going to start with the painting. Okay, so let's get started then. I'm just going to turn this a little so you can see it better. Okay, so welcome everybody. We are going to be doing this beautiful little bird painting. I wanted to mention before we get started in this that I am using, you know, the colors that I sent out to you, that I showed you for this painting, the blues, the greens, the little yellows, reds, but please feel free to switch up the colors any way that you like. If you want a blue bird and a yellow background, then you go right ahead. And if you need help getting there too, just let me know. I will be demonstrating it with specific colors, but always feel free to switch out the colors any way you like. And if you want to add anything to your bird, change it up, make it a different kind of bird. Maybe you have something specific in mind, of course. Feel free. You don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. I'm just kind of guiding you through some basic steps in doing this painting. All right, is everybody excited to get started? All right, very good. So let me just move this a little closer. Okay, what we're going to start with is, I wanted to show you the brushes I'm going to be using today. I will be using my standard 3 different brushes, a large flat brush, medium round brush, a little bit of a point to it, and a small little detail liner brush. Okay, we're going to start with the large flat brush. And of course, everybody needs some water. And we're going to dip that brush right in the water, take it up right on into the water. And let's start with a nice blue sky background. So taking that brush out of the water, I'm just going to, and I didn't dry it off at all, it's still quite damp. I'm going to take some white paint and just pull it aside. White paint, and then pull it over towards the blue a bit. And then I'm just going to let a little bit of blue start mixing in there. A little bit of blue. I'm going to get a really nice light blue in there. Nice light blue. Okay, so this first part, I usually start with the easiest possible step, but today I'm going to be a little hard on you guys and make it's a little bit more difficult starting out today. What we're going to do with this nice light blue is just kind of outline the bird as close as possible. So now don't worry if you feel like you can't get really close to that bird with the large brush. You can always get as close as you can. Just give it a little halo and then go back in with a smaller brush. But I'm going to get right in there, right up to the bird, and get a nice light blue all around, surrounding my bird. And of course, if you feel like you need to switch on over to a smaller brush for this, go right ahead. That is entirely up to you. Okay. And I'm going to completely surround the bird with this light blue to start out with. Right down to the branch. And we're actually gonna, once you get around the bird, we're gonna take this color and just kind of take it all the way up into the sky, all the way up. Adding a little bit of water to your mixture helps to get the paint to move a little more smoothly on the canvas when you're working with acrylics. So just a little bit of water can definitely help you out with getting nice smooth lines in there. Okay, now once you have your basic light blue everywhere in the sky, you can go ahead and take that same color and bring a little bit of it underneath your branch as well. Not filling the whole thing in, but just bringing a little layer in underneath the branch as well. Okay, and once you've got your lighter blue in the painting, let's take a little bit, while the paint is still wet, let's just take a little bit more blue of the darker blue and just pull it in to that light blue, darken it up just a little bit, and just bring a few brush strokes of it up into the sky at the very top. And just kind of let it work its way down into the lighter blue. Now, when I say bring in a few brush strokes, what I'm doing here is moving my brush around quite a bit in different directions. I'm not keeping it all in perfectly straight lines coming down, although you could. That's just not what I'm doing. I am kind of really whipping my brush around quite a bit and getting some movement with those brush strokes. I kind of, in this background, in this painting, I really like to see the brush strokes. And by switching the direction of my brush strokes, it gives it a really painterly look. And just kind of let it blend into the lighter blue. You could even add a little bit more of the light blue to get a nice smooth blend. And just keep on going back and forth between your lighter blue and darker blue until you get a nice smooth transition. I'm going to go back into my lighter blue and just, if there's a real defined line between dark blue and light blue, all you have to do is go back over it with your lighter blue, wherever that line is, and break it up a bit until it becomes a nice smooth blend. You may have to keep doing it a couple of times. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to bringing in, here, let me just show you on this sample. So I'm going to be bringing in this kind of soft, muted, light blue-green off in the distance. Now, if you notice, if you look closely, you can really see those brush strokes. And look closely how they're all moving in different directions, just like I was working in the sky, moving my brush around different directions. I kind of got that same look in here, and it gives it almost the look of a palette knife, as if you had just taken a palette knife and you're scraping or chiseled sort of brush strokes in here. And it gives it a really nice effect in the background. And you kind of want this to be muted. All these colors up around the bird, we're going to keep them really soft and muted. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go back into that brush that I was using without even rinsing it off because I'm going to keep up with that light blue color. If you've used all your light blue, go ahead and make a little bit more. Nice light blue. But this time we're going to switch it up and add just a little bit of green to start. So just take the corner of your brush, scoop it on into that green, just a little corner of green, and then let it blend in with your light blue. So we're switching up this color. It's still really soft and muted, really soft, light green. You want this color to be very pastel-y. So if it's still dark, go ahead and add a little more white to it. You want it to be very pastel-y and add a little bit of water to help with the effect of just kind of barely there brush strokes off in the distance. Okay, I'm going to start maybe somewhere on the right side, a little bit above the bird and coming in from the right. Remember, I am making those brush strokes. Some go up, some go down, some go sideways, getting kind of close to the bird, but not really hitting the bird. So, and I want to kind of see some of the, I do want to still see some of that sky in the background. So leaving some of the sky in the background. And just kind of working around the bird. Not going up too high into the sky. Just a little above where the bird is. Barely there brush strokes. And I'm going to take that all the way down below the bird too. Same thing. Even down to the very bottom. It's okay if you bump into the branch. Okay, so now once you've got your soft pastel-y sort of background in there, we're going to start bringing in a little bit more of some bolder, brighter colors. So that would be like right in through here. You can see the brush strokes, brighter, bolder, darker colors down here, here. Now notice it doesn't cover over that soft pastel-y background. It's just a few brush strokes here and there that make it really pop. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, So again, taking that plate, taking that same large brush, you can just dab it on your napkin. You don't really need to wipe it or clean it. Just going to add some more green and some more blue to that mixture. So going a little bit darker, adding some more green and some more blue together to that mixture that I just used. And this, I'm going to start with a nice dark stroke down here in the lower left corner, just bringing in some nice dark brush strokes, just a couple of them. I don't want it to be too many. You may have to add a little bit of water to that mixture. And again, they're going in all different directions. And that really gives it a...
Leah, I was preoccupied. What color did you just mix?
Yep, it is actually just more blue and more green added to that mixture. So just darkening up a little bit. And then just bringing in some brush strokes. If you notice the way my hand is moving in here, it's kind of very quickly, all different directions. It's okay if a few brush strokes go over the branch. I'm going to keep on going in the lower portion of the painting. Now this is not meant to cover over completely. Like I said, it's just adding to. So that was more blue, more green. Bring it into that mixture so there is a little bit of white in there. But it's still nice and dark. Maybe a little dab of water will help too. And now when we come closer to the bird, just a few of these brush strokes, not too crazy up here, just maybe near the edge. Same thing over here. Penny, no. Definitely try to not overthink this step too much or spend too much time in it because it's very easy to overdo it. Maybe one more nice dark one down here in the lower left corner, just for emphasis. But after that, I'm gonna stop. Okay, let's do one more little step in the background before we move on. Again, overdoing it in the background can definitely cause problems. So without rinsing my brush, I'm just going to add a little splash of yellow into that mixture. Just a little splash of yellow and a little splash of white. Little splash of yellow, a little splash of white, just for some tiny little bits of highlight. And really just a few. Just barely there. We could always add more later if we want to. Just a few little ones, barely there, barely there. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to overdo it with this. And And I'm gonna rinse my brush. Okay, so now we all have these beautiful backgrounds. The time has come to get a little bit of detail going in our bird. Now, let me just do a little close-up of the bird in the painting. Okay, this little bird, he or she, I'm not sure which one it is, comes in a number of layers. And like I said, feel free to change up the colors. I am using a lot of oranges and whites and nice light colors, but you can certainly switch it up if you want to. But we're going to start with just a kind of a neutral brown color, just to kind of lay in the shadows and get the outline of the bird in. Okay, so let's do that right now. Actually, let's make our brown and do our branch first. That's a better idea. So instead of going to the small brush, we're going to go right into the medium size round brush. Medium round, get it nice and wet. And you notice over here how we have this red, yellow, and black combination all together? There's a good reason for that. I want to do make a nice orange with that. So all of that yellow, and then maybe half of the red. So it's mostly yellow, a little bit of red. Make a nice pile of orange. And you're going to make a whole bunch of this. If you can, because we're going to use it. Making a nice big pile of orange, but it's a nice yellowy orange, a little bit of red, but more of a yellowy orange. Like so. Well, that's kind of a true orange, isn't it? Okay, once you've got your orange, take a nice big scoop of that orange, nice big scoop, pull it over near the black, and just bring over a tiny little bit of black into it. We'll start with a little and add as we need to. So we're getting kind of a grayish, brownish sort of color in there. If your brown is coming out too green, just add a little more red. And that is exactly what's happening with mine, so I need more red. And keep going until you get a nice brownish, rich, earthy color. So that's black, yellow, red. Keep going until you get a rich, earthy color. There you go, maybe somewhere around there. Everybody's is gonna look a little bit different. And I would add a little bit of water to your mixture, just unless it's already watery, just to get it a little easier to work with. All right, so I know everybody's got a little bit of the branch already drawn on there, but I think I'm gonna make it a little more dramatic on the left side. Give it kind of, make it a little thicker on the left side. So I want my branch to start just a little bit lower below the bird, kind of make its way up like that, and then back down again. And it's going to be a little thicker towards the edge of the canvas, and then get a little thinner as it goes out towards the bird. Okay, so a little thicker towards the edge of the canvas, and then it gets thinner as it goes out towards the bird. Okay, and I'm going to come up right underneath the bird's feet, and it gets, remember, this is really important, it does get thinner as the branch goes out. So by the time it's sitting under the bird, it's getting much thinner, and you get thinner by using less pressure. So I'm going way lighter with my pressure as I'm going out. Barely touching the canvas now, barely touching it. Letting it come back down again and off the edge of the canvas, just barely touching the canvas. So again, it's nice and thick on this left side. Interesting little shapes going on. It's not perfectly straight at all. I like my branches to be kind of wobbly and fun. Like they're just old, interesting shapes. Now, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, and don't worry if it takes you a little bit of time, but I want to show you that it works best if you do this while the paint is still wet. So while the paint is still wet, I'm just going to add a little bit more black to my paintbrush. A little bit more black, let it blend in with the brown. So I'm just getting a little darker. And at the bottom of the branch, we're going to bring in a little layer of darker paint. Just at the bottom, just get it a little bit darker at the bottom. So it's just it's still kind of a brownish color, but just a little darker at the bottom. Just going to give us a little bit of a shadowy sort of look to it. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to keep on going with that same color for now, but we're going to switch on over to the smallest brush. Does everybody have a good detail brush? Something they can get some little lines in there? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to take that small brush, dip it into the water, and go back into the brown. Just the regular brown that we used on the tree branch. Let's take that brown at the very end. Let's make this branch kind of interesting. Let's have some little break-offs at the top of the branch. On this side where the bird, on the right side of the painting. Let's have some interesting little shapes going on where the branch kind of breaks off. And maybe it does it in a couple of spots. I like to see at least 3 little break-offs here. I think it looks really nice. And you could even do more if you wanted to. Just a fun little detail, but it does look nice. A finished painting. Okay. Oh, I like this. I like this branch even better than my other one. Just zoom in a little bit with that. Okay. Just because I'm just so proud of it. There we go. All right, once you've got nice little detail going on at the end of the branch, and we'll bring the highlights in a little bit later. But for now, we're going to keep going with that small brush and back into that just regular brown we use, not the dark, dark one, but that regular brown. What we're going to do is water it down with the little brush a little bit so we can get some a nice point to our paintbrush. Really want to avoid having dry paint here because you need to get some fine lines where our bird is. So essentially right now, I'm going to fill in all my lines, all those pencil lines that you had there. Just going to go over every single one of them with a small brush. So that everything all the way around the outer edge. Just give it a nice little outline. And don't worry, a lot of it's going to get covered over. Oops. See, I always try to make at least one big old mistake so everybody knows that they're welcome to make mistakes in their painting too. So just going over the lines that I have. I'm also going to use this for my little bird feet too. Get my little birdie feet in there now. Why not? Okay, so once you've got a little outline of the bird, let's continue on with that same small brush, that same brown paint. And this time we're just going to get a few little shadows started in the bird. This is just a base for what we're going to have build everything else on. So let's start with the belly. We're going to get a little, and I'll just show you in the original. See how we've got this nice little shadow going on underneath the belly, and the shadow kind of works its way up all the way here. A nice little underbelly shadow, and on the left side of the wing, it is kind of a little bit underneath the breast as well. So I'm going to just show you how to do that. It's really simple, just using that same small brush, that same brown paint, just going to work in a little bit of a little shadow at the bottom of the belly. Just kind of going with what's there already. And then just to the left of the wing, get a little shadow going in there as well. And let's get one underneath the head as well. And I didn't go super thick with this paint. I have to get a nice little drip going on there. I'm going to put shadow in a couple of places here. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit of a shadow in this little tail in the background behind the wings. Just put a little shadow in there. Oh, my paint was too wet. And that's what happens.
Miss, I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I guess when you launch things into other dimensions.
Okay, so now I'm going to bring in a little bit of just a little bit of a base for these feathers by just having a few little lines kind of coming in like this for the feathers. I'm not covering over that wing in shadow, but just bringing in a few little lines for the feathers. And then just finally, I want to emphasize the shadow around the eye a little bit. Just give him a little bit more of a shadow around the eye. Okay. I think we've got a pretty good base going on here to get our orangey colors on top of this. Okay, so now I'm going to go rinse off that brush, that small brush. We're going to start by using a little bit of that orange. Does everybody still have some of that orange left that we used when we were first making the color for the tree branch? If not, you just make more by mixing yellow and red together. Okay, so I'm going to go back into that same orange and just fill in everywhere where you don't have the shadow right now. Just fill in with this color. It's okay if some of the brown gets mixed in there. That's actually a really good thing. And you can also go in between or in the wings, you can go in between the browns with this color too. And I'm starting to go nice and thick with my paint colors now. And you can even let this color kind of blend into the browns that you used a little bit too. So it'll be right on top of the shadow colors. Right on top of those shadow colors. You'll still see the shadow underneath, but it's just kind of adding another layer to it. Nice and thick with the paint. And if you lose your shadow color, you can just bring a little bit of it back. And it's important to go nice and thick with your paint right now. Okay, I'm just going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see it up close, where we're at this point. Somewhere like, something like this. Okay, for the next layer, what we're going to keep doing here is continually adding layers and letting it kind of blend in a little bit with the colors underneath. But when the thicker you go with your paint, the less it's going to blend in completely with what's beneath it. It's going to add another layer as opposed to just completely blending in with what's underneath it. So go nice and thick with your paint from here on in. Okay, so now we've got that beautiful color we were working with. Let's add a little bit of white to it, lighten it up a bit. So add a scoop of white to that orange color you were just working on. Gonna lighten it up a bit. Get a sort of creamsicle looking color in there. Lighten it up a bit. I'm not going completely light at this point, just lightening it a little bit. Okay, so let's start on the bird's head. Let's start by bringing in a nice layer of this. And at this point, let's start thinking in terms of feathers, okay? Think in terms of feathers. So let me show you what I mean. If you look up close, zoom right in on this. Do you notice how the brush strokes are really clearly seen? You can really see those brush strokes. And they're moving in the direction that the head is shaped in because they're feathers. Same with on the body. Look at this. You see the brush strokes, but they're really moving with the curve of the body. This is a really important part of building layers and of those feathers. So remember to go with the curve of the body, the curve of the head. On the top of the head, it's curved this way. On the bottom, it's curved this way. So that's very important as we go into this next layer. Start building these feathers. So on the top of the head, nice and visible. And again, I'm using nice thick paint. And I'm just going to do a couple underneath. And keep going. The feathers in the front, remember, go with the shape of the curve. And I'm not completely covering over the color beneath it. This is adding a layer on top and letting some of that color that is beneath it stay in its place. Now, when I get down here to the bottom part of the belly, I don't want too much light down here, just a few little feathery brush strokes. But that's it. Mostly it stays in the dark down here. Okay, I'm going to keep on going into the wings. Again, keeping with the shape of the curve. Nice and thick. Let some of the colors beneath stay in place. Just adding another layer. And on the beak, I'm just going to do a little bit of this color on the tippity top of the beak. Start getting some little highlights in there. Okay, this is a great color now that we've been working with to use for the highlights in our tree branch. So before we go any further with the bird and those highlights, we're going to bring in a few little highlights onto the top of the tree branch. And let me just show you those on the original here. So see how it's very subtle, just a little bit of a highlight on the top of the branch. Okay, Sophie, I just got your picture of the bird. I would say let's keep going with the shot with the highlights on yours, and we can always come back and add more shadow if necessary at the end. But you've got enough of the shadow that it might be okay. Okay, but for back to the branch, using that same lighter color, let's just get a few little brush strokes at the top of the tree branch. And let a few of them kind of work their way down into the middle. You can even blend it a little bit with your finger like that. So I'm starting at the top, just barely perceivable brush strokes. And then you just let my finger take it down just a little bit further. Just a few little highlights at the top. And when you get to this outer part of the branch, it's just a little tiny hint of them, not much at all. There we go, barely there. Okay. Okay, so now we've got that beautiful highlight on the branch. We've got our dark shadows. We've got our mid-tones of the orange. I think at this point, we're ready to start bringing in some nice light lights. So I'm going to take, I actually want to make a new orange over here so I'm not getting any brown at all in this mixture. So I'm going to mix some yellow, a little bit of red, mostly yellow though, mostly yellow. Mostly yellow. And this time I want to go and add a whole bunch of white to that. I mean, really lighten it up. So it's just a step beneath white. So not quite white, but really close to it. There we go. Really light peachy color with some yellow undertones. There we go, I like that. So this area, let's concentrate on the areas that are getting most highlighted, like the top, the breast of the bird. It's getting some nice bright highlights. In fact, we're even going to do another layer of white on top of this. But let's get a layer in here of this kind of creamsicle color on the breast. Make sure those brush strokes are nice and visible. And see them clearly. And I'm not covering over the whole breast area, just enough to get some nice bright highlights there. Okay, same with underneath the, like the bottom part of the bird's face. It's getting a nice little layer of highlight in there. Make those brush strokes nice and visible. You want to see them as feathers. Tiny little dashes. And a few on the back part of the head as well. Okay, just going to pull this up close. You can kind of see where we're at right now. Everybody see that? So this is really making the head and the breast emphasize right now. I'm going to hold it right up close so you can see it for just a moment. Okay, I'm going to keep on going with the highlights with this nice light color. Now when I'm coming into the wings, I'm going to keep my brush strokes very short little brush strokes. Like tiny little feathers. Picture just tiny little feathers. And we're going to have one little layer that's very close to the shadow on his. You want to create a nice contrast next to the shadow. So let's get a little layer of very highlighted feathers right next to our shadow. And then maybe some more as they come out towards the tip. We'll get a little bit in his outer tail too. Just a few. Now I'm noticing I went way too bright right next to my shadow. And I need to break that up a little bit, but that's good because then you can see what I do to break it up. So to break it up, if you get too intense with any of your highlights or any of your colors, you can just bring some brown back in there. Just break it up a bit so it looks more like feathers. Okay, now I'm going to come back in and just to add a couple of pure white highlights into the breast area. So let me show you on the original painting what I'm talking about. So especially right at the breast and under the face, we've got some nice white feathers, maybe a little white tip here, a little bit there. We're just going to bring in some little highlights right now. So this is just pure white paint. And then just a few little white feathers right in the front. You really want them to look like feathers. And maybe a few down here around the face. Maybe a few in the wings. Maybe one at the tip of his beak too. A nice little highlight at the very top of his beak. And let me just zoom in on this. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to bring in the a little bit of detail into the eye. So using the small brush, I'm going to rinse it off good and get some black paint on my brush. Just pure black paint. Okay, so if you look at this sample painting, if you really look closely at the eye, it's kind of like shaped like a little tiny diamond inside of a diamond, or like a little sesame seed. You can imagine drawing that in there. A little tiny diamond or a little sesame seed right at the center of the eye. So I'm going to come in with some black paint with my small paintbrush. And just kind of right in the center. I'm going to try and get it as little as I can. Just a little tiny diamond or sesame seed. It can help to add a little bit of water to your paint. There we go. Kind of like a little diamond. And I'm going to use the same black to emphasize his feet. And that's about it for the black. And then I'm going to let that dry a moment. So just give it a moment to dry. Here we go. I'm just going to bring it up close. If everybody can see that. A little diamond or a little sesame seed right in the center of the eye. And then just give it a moment to dry before we put that little highlight in there. Okay, so now once that's dry, give it just a moment. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry, but you just want to take some white paint and do a tiny little dot of white, maybe somewhere near the center of the eye, right in the middle of the black. Tiny little dot of white paint. And now he's just perfectly adorable. That was the finishing touch that it needed. Okay. So let me just do a little close-up of that. Can everybody see that? Little white dot in the center of the black. And it's the spark of life that this bird needed. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and let you know too that anybody who wants to can have a copy of this recording. I think I finally got it down. And I've been recording these classes. So if you want to go over this again or do another version of the same painting or do a different color bird, whatever, let me know, and I am happy to send a link to that recording for you. Okay, so I'm going to just end the recording, and then if anyone has questions,